Hi, and welcome to the Fluid Voice. I'm Ozma in the Dark. I go by she, they pronouns, cuz. Um, and I am here with the lovely co hosts and lovely guest. How are you doing, Christy?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I know I usually say something silly here, but no, just saying.
That's good.
I had
Still,
garbage. There was 50 miles an hour winds, and I was driving down the street, and there were garbage cans flying everywhere, and I didn't get hit by anything. And so, cool. Although a truck tried to cut me off because the truck was trying to avoid the garbage cans too. And and you've been hearing for the last half hour during pre-show how freaking loud it is in here because the outside is trying to come in.
I
And
mean,
there was thunder and lightning, and oh my. Okay, there we go. I've gotten my silliness out, so
okay.
I couldn't help it.
Still using she, they pronoun or she, her
I,
pronouns. Wow,
I,
I'm forcing my
non
pronouns onto you. I am violating consent.
you changed up my binary status. I know she her.
And perfect. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine today. He, him pronouns.
And finally, we have our guest, longtime viewer,
Professional lurker.
yeah, professional lurker, and also person I was so paranoid with. See, this is why I have perfect screen colors now, because I was like, I'm not making the connection, and I was worried that you were a troll. So I don't trust
That's
my
okay.
like Christy is like, you say you'll just trust everyone, and I, because of the troll encounter, I'm like, I don't trust anyone for colors.
Well,
No one is a reasonable default.
this is a person that I run into kind of everywhere. We're on a lot of the same live streams, so and we do side conversations every once in a while.
Yeah.
And it's rather fun.
Oh, and
So yeah, professional
You
lurker.
operate on the same
She, her-
wavelengths.
Occasionally.
Yeah, and
So professional lurker, she, her pronouns.
yeah,
Thoughts about tonight's topic.
yeah, and so when we mentioned last week that we were talking about consent, M came up and was like, I want to be your guest. And I was like, cool. We've been talking a bunch on Discord. I trust you now. After
I feel
like
honored.
After a few months of talking on Discord, I find it, and occasionally lurking on your Facebook just to double check. I was like, okay, there's no way the chance of you being a troll is so low that
If this is a troll, they have a very long game.
yeah, I know exactly, and so. Well, that my paranoia had subsided somewhat, anyways, because it had been a while since the troll instant, which I still have like a quick fix to as well, which is funny, which I haven't used because I was too paranoid.
Well, don't worry about it too much.
Oh, I'm not.
Okay.
Like I said,
Emma's
trust
not,
him.
you could just ask me. Emma's not a troll. Emma's.
Well, yeah, I just look. It's because I wasn't making the connection between the Discord and the YouTube, and I'm like, is this the same person or is this person pretending? Because a lot of that, the previous troll instant didn't help because the troll claimed to not be the person who was invited into Discord or whatever, and it's just like, because that's a way that they'll fuck with your head. So I'm just like, oh. That was just, it was just an awful day. So
that was a
when it comes
violation
to
of
consent, what's everyone's thoughts on consent?
Well, hold on. Let me do my long entry thing here. Oh, hold on. I'm gonna be hourglass. So last week, sorry, you never used to let them photograph his face, just the microphone in front of it. So yeah, last week in the chat we had touched on consent a little bit, and there was a couple of weeks ago we were on a different chat and we started touching on consent, and it was kind of like, this is something I really have been wanting to explore for a while, and I brought it up, and lo and behold, a couple of days later, I ran into this Twitter post, which is, I'm not going to say the name, but it says, if you have sex with someone knowing full well it is going to be a one-time thing, but the other person believes they are embarking on a relationship, I don't think you can really consider the sex consensual. And I wound up having a very long conversation with two reasonably fine people over the next several hours, as I started trying to work through that, because my surface level is that I would agree with this thing.
My surface levels, I would disagree.
You mean there's disagreement on this?
Yeah, no, this is going to turn into a full-on debate structure now. No, I mean that's surface level. I mean, I can explain my reasoning if you're interested. Why I disagree.
Well, I want to hear Christy's end of this.
Oh yeah, I suppose
she can get diverted on her story so easily.
Yeah,
that is true.
But my stories are long, so at least one person, and since I ran across this, I didn't think there was going to be that much feedback on this, but there's 5.2K of comments, which, wow. I would have gone into it earlier. But one of the things is, I was thinking, well, while consent is not a gray area, and in that it is not, or lack of consent is not a gray area in which we would want to which we would impose on others, or we would want imposed on ourselves. There are spectrums within 3 levels of consent that I can think of, and I didn't put 3 levels of consent into the conversation I had because I didn't think of it until Thursday. But there was a particular one, because someone said, are you comparing this to, rough sex gone wrong? And I'm like, no, I'm putting in a spectrum in here because hierarchical, coerced, and mistake are 3 levels of consent that are all different. And somewhere near the end of it, I put, I've suddenly got Paradise by the Dashboard Light running through my head.
Well, that's just the magic of Meatloaf.
Well, it is, but Steinman informs much of my life, because that is a song about consent. I mean, quite literally.
Yeah.
And what it takes to get it, and rather than coercing, who is coercing whom in the song. And so I put the floor open to the rest of my compatriots here.
Okay, so my instinctual thought is that my instinctual reaction is that the sex is consensual, but the relationship, in the broadest sense of what it means to have a relationship, the relationship is not consensual.
Okay.
That's how I would view it. Because it's clear in that circumstance they are viewing the idea of a relationship differently, and they either one or both of them either lied to themselves or the other person, or they didn't mention it and they went off of an assumption of sort of implied consent by going into this sort of circumstance. So
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
so
We're not disagreeing. We're defining slightly differently.
can I ask you a question then, Ozma? So to follow up on your disagreement, then how do things like if the act itself was consensual in that context, then how do things like marital rape occur?
So, because marital rape is not consensual sex.
How is that less consensual than the situation described?
Because when it comes to marital rape, one person is forcing themselves onto the other person physically.
But what if they don't need to use physical force? What if they say, I'm your spouse and I am entitled to this? So
yeah, sorry. Even
complies.
if it's not physical force, they are not getting Oh, I see what you're getting at. No. You're making a good point here. So I see what you're getting at, because, like, obviously it's not an informed consensual position if you did not know it was going to be a one-night stand. And similarly, it's not an informed consensual position to be get talked into being into a relationship when you were just trying to have a one-night stand.
Or tell someone that, oh, of course I love you, baby. No.
The definition of love is an entirely different.
Yeah, do you want me to, like, the Greeks had it better with, like, what, 5 types of love?
Yeah, that's not where I was going with that.
I know.
That's a way of coercing someone into sex.
Yeah. The love thing and implied relationship thing.
Which is what the thing is actually saying, but a lot of people are not taking.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Part of my take on it is that I think that the biggest potential for tragedy in having sex and the potential for the biggest tragedies in having sex are when two people are having sex for two entirely different reasons, and that there can be this total miscommunication. And the example I usually go to is one person thought that they were getting together for some friendly exercise, and the other person thought that they were making an expression of their committed love.
Yeah.
And they just didn't know that the other one had this idea. But if you knew the other person had that idea and you withheld the information that you didn't, then you're withholding information in order to control their view of the world. And then you're responsible for their happiness. And if they're not happy with the outcome, you owe them happiness, which is a terrible place to be in. You shouldn't ought to do that. That's the whole point. Point of consent. That you've broken their consent.
Well, I mean that
you tried to impair their ability to give consent, to have informed consent.
Well, yeah, obviously there are situations where one person is specifically at fault. But there are also situations where neither party consented to the ideal of the other party.
Right. I mean, it can happen. Really, seriously, it can happen where somebody was like, I thought we were having a casual relationship. I had no idea you thought this was serious.
Well,
You know.
I got a lot of pushback on my idea of sex as a spectrum because people were saying, well, is this, are you trying to do are you trying to do this like date rape? Is this something you would go to the cops over? Which is a ridiculous freaking question. No. Unless other factors were present, no, because consent is a spectrum. The guy jumping out of the bushes is worse than the guy who just says, of course I love you, baby. It's still coercion and it's still bad and it's still non-consensual, but it is not the same thing.
So I have a question, Christy. Could you go into a little bit more detail with your breakdown of consent, because you're talking about consent in terms of a spectrum?
Well, yeah, I later added it. I later put it into 3 categories, but each of which has a spectrum within it. But because I'm just freaking like that.
It's fine. I'm like that too.
Yeah, but in this particular semi-coercive case, you can have something that is agreed to by both parties with incomplete information, where one has more information than the other does, and that is probably the lowest form of non-consent. I mean, I'm sure there's lower, I don't want to cook tonight. I have to, maybe that's the lowest form. But to all the way to the guy jumping out of the bushes, kidnapping you and taking you to Borneo. No, I'm not going to go with Borneo. Easter Island. I'll go with Easter Island. I don't know why I changed. But.
I would argue that it's not necessarily a case of more information versus less information, and then it could also be a situation of different information. And again, 1, lack of effective communication, and 2, shit power dynamics. If you are in a position where you're in any type of relationship, but specifically an interpersonal relationship where one person has significantly more power and control over the relationship, whether the other person is cognizant of that or not can greatly affect how the relationship develops. And it can be especially bad if the person who's actually effectively in the secondary position thinks that they're in a position of equity. If you think you're both on the same page working to a common goal, when in reality, the other party is working actively to manipulate your actions and reactions in order to specifically facilitate their own ends, that is a special kind of ugly.
Okay, you made me think, and I think that it doesn't even require all of what you're saying. I think that if a person entered into a relationship, a sexual exchange with another person, and they didn't care, they were going to do a hit it and quit it, and they simply did not care what the other person thought about it. They were doing something wrong. They were in some way violating that other person's consent, even if that other person was also going, no, I'm doing a hit it and quit it. That does not ameliorate their wrongdoing. They went in not caring what the other person, in other words, they didn't care about consent.
Correct.
And so they were guilty of violating consent.
Correct. But what I'm trying to say is one of the things that I believe can develop, and I've seen develop, is so you have a person who has this sort of hit it and quit it perspective on a relationship. They do what they're going to do. It goes however it goes. Instead of moving on, what I'm going to call the initiator of said relationship decides, I'm not really interested in this person. And they don't really, they're not somebody who I would value as a whole person or I would consider a long-term relationship with. But that one maneuver they did that one time was really impressive. So I know I can get it again. So I'm just going to go ahead and get that as many times as I can get it because I know it is a resource that I can exploit.
Oh.
And then the other person who, in this context, I would consider the more manipulated party, keeps going back because they're like, yeah, I had a good time that time. And they keep contacting me and reinitiating stuff. So that must mean that this is an actual relationship, right? We must actually be on the same page here, even if it is only for recreation. So even if there's not a misinformation, confusion over the idea of love in the sort of Harlequin romance sense, it can still be a really super shitty and destructive situation. Because when you realize, okay, I thought I was just entertainment for this person, but I wasn't just entertainment, I was a piece of meat. That's a special kind of calm down. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Although now I am very now I'm just thinking about like depressing relationship stuff. I probably should try to figure out a way to tie this back to consent, although I'm curious when it comes to informed consent, what I mean, I guess this technically relates. So, let me talk about my limited relationship experience. So, years ago, I went along with the idea of being in a relationship because that was what you're supposed to do, according to society. And I mean, I was asked out. The person was nice, good friend of mine, roommate now, but we broke up, and it was a whole rocky thing. We were trying to figure shit out at the time. We both agreed that lasted too long. It was a very consensual breakup. But it was
It was a very rocky thing, but it did go all the way.
I mean, depending on people's definitions between all the way, but yeah.
Sorry, that I was hoping someone would get that joke.
I'm sorry.
Adrian.
Fuck, I haven't watched Rocky in a while.
That's
But yeah. Oh, god damn it. Sorry. I just picked up on your joke. I just got your joke. Anyways.
I'm the mystery.
Like I was saying, I went into it because I thought that's what you're supposed to do to some degree, and I largely gave arguably all control or a lot of the control of the relationship to my partner at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So,
you saw it as the next step in being an adult, but you didn't know what the steps were in doing that. So you let them take the lead.
Yeah, and so when it comes to consent, like now that we're talking deeper in consent, like I don't even know what to think about that, because like I was never allossexual or whatever, and I didn't realize how important sex was to people normally, because it's the first relationship I'd ever been to. So when it comes to so much uninformed stuff, it's like that's when you get into like really gray areas of consent, and I'm just like, I have no idea.
Well, I would go with spectrums. I don't think lack of consent is ever a gray area necessarily. I'm trying to make that distinction. I mean,
because on the one hand, yes, I let someone else completely take the reins of a relationship because I didn't know what I was doing. But on the other hand, I had no idea or information. Really, I really didn't know what that meant to any degree.
No.
And so it's just because like all I saw when it came to relationships is just movie snippets, and that's never the complete thing. And if I don't have because I didn't have the instinctive desires to put the pieces together, I really, I mean, I get it all now because I've thought about relationship stuff the past 4 years, but like I definitely didn't understand it like just out of high school.
Right. So it
See,
could well be.
I'm sorry.
Huh?
No, you go ahead.
A couple of years ago, I asked someone to marry me, and I was absolutely serious, and she had no idea that I was serious and said yes, which was a devastating thing to me when it came to the next day.
Oh.
So
So
yeah,
the new title of this episode: depressing relationship stories. No, I mean it's hard to avoid relationships completely when you're talking about consent, since that's a large part of people's lives when it comes to consent. Although it does affect a lot of other things.
Yeah,
as well.
but I would push back on that somewhat, in the sense of, I think part of the reason why interpersonal, especially physical relationships, can be so complicated is because the way in which we wield consent in public spaces is so deeply screwed up that we never learn boundaries or communication effectively in a public sense. So you never learn to communicate that effectively. And then you have other feelings or other social needs to complete or satisfy. And whether that's drives to satisfy or whether that's boxes to check as far as life goals you're supposed to hit by X age, if you don't learn consent and boundaries in public, by the time the doors close behind you, you are so deeply, completely screwed. It's not funny.
No.
And my question would also be, okay, so Ozma, you mentioned your relationship. So just so I have an understanding of what was kind of basically overview here. So what you're talking about effectively is you got in a situation and you had very different needs than the other person,
Yeah.
and you didn't have the words for that at that point.
I didn't know shit about asexuality until
Okay, so
like I was 30 plus. I was trying to there was a part of me that was trying to prove
right.
that I wasn't a weirdo cis het dude at the time, so there's like a lot of complicated emotions and bad motivations.
Okay, so in that specific context, just to make it really sort of easier to quantify, you didn't have words, you didn't have context, and you didn't have tools to back any of it up. So you got into that situation and you had no idea that you and this other person were on completely different, not just pages, but books.
Yeah.
And then you ceded control to that other person because you thought that's how you sustain a relationship.
Well, it was because she had relationship experience.
Right.
I didn't, so I assumed she would know better, and that's part of the reasoning I had.
Okay. But you realize more experience is not a value judgment, right?
Yeah, no, I do now.
Okay.
I didn't when I was younger.
Okay.
It's a mistake that anyone could fall into. I mean, the person I was just talking about, I ceded control of a lot of my life for a long time.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's part of the aspect of why at some point I realized how easily I could have been terribly abused.
Yeah.
Well, and in this culture specifically, we have such an obsession with the concept of a trophy wife. And basically, being a trophy wife is ceding control to another person to make decisions about all the things that you don't want to be bothered with, so that then you can get all the pretty, shiny other things that you want, but you don't have to worry about any of the other things you don't want to. And I think that's where part of the things get ugly is, genders aside, the rom-coms tell us, you know, being a trophy wife and not having to worry about stuff or adults completely is a really good gig if you can get it. Because if you can just get somebody to write the checks, then you don't have to think so much, and thinking is hard. So we'll avoid that.
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
I'm not even belittling anybody's arrangement with their relationship. I think anything anybody's worked out that they're good with.
I don't have a problem with it as long as it is deliberately consensual. If that is a position that you consciously choose and you know what the rules and responsibilities of that position are going to be, go for it. You do you.
Yeah, and that's where it comes to informed consent versus just saying yes.
Right. And then again, you don't just need to be able to say yes. One, you need the context for what yes means.
Yes.
Two, you need the tools to be able to navigate that. And three, and most importantly, in my head, you need to be able to have the resources to say, no, this is a really bad idea. This is not what I thought I was going to be. Just kidding, I'm out. Never mind.
Well, one of the things we were talking about, and so this gets into another area of coercion, is where you can be coerced into enthusiastic consent, which is a place where I've been.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people have been at some point to one degree or another. I know yours is a little
coercion is once again a spectrum. Yeah, these are part of the problems.
Yeah.
Plea is coercion. And so is I'll boil your pets if you don't.
Yeah.
True.
It will not be ignored. How much do you want to talk about your experience with that, or not? That's the question I should have asked you earlier, and I apologize.
With
for
which
not.
are you talking to me or somebody else?
No, you.
I'm not going to get into the specifics of that today. I'll get into it not in the situation that we discussed before. But okay, I'll get into a different example of something. I went to an event to celebrate a mentor of mine. And so this was somebody who I knew well and respected a great deal and cared for a whole lot. And when after the program was over, I was surrounded by a bunch of people, 95+% of whom either didn't know me at all, knew me only by name in reference to either this person or a couple other people that we knew in common, or hadn't seen me in several decades. I should clarify that in addition to feminine pronouns, all that other good stuff, I'm a power wheelchair user, so that adds a whole other level of fun and excitement to the level of consent that we're referring to here, especially in this example, because as not the only in this particular context, because this was an educator, after the initial program, people came up around me. Basically, everybody who was within my physical realm put their hands on me. I had people's hands in my hair, on my face, pretty much constantly for a good hour. This was not fun for me.
Yeah, I
and
can't imagine that would be fun for anyone.
Yeah. So, and for bonus points, I could get neither to the exit because it was blocked by people, or the bathroom to wash my face, which I desperately wanted to do. And it was the fact that it happened repetitively for an extended period of time. And the whole time in my head, I'm going, I can't show out because if I do, in this context, I will be the crazy one. I will be the wrong person because all these people are just showing affection. They're being quote unquote kind. They're being generous. And the whole time, I'm about to flip out. And by the way, for just sheer entertainment purposes, we're in a church. And I'm looking at the crucifix, holding keys in my hands, going, I could do some things to people right now, but I won't, because again, if I do anything, if I flinch, and if I am anything other than performative and accepting and deeply, publicly grateful, then there will be retribution, not for them, but for me.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's one of the dangerous things with crowd mentality, where it's just there. Anyone who breaks the crowd is the one that's wrong.
Well, that was part of it. In that particular context, because there were educators involved. In addition to the crowd mentality, there was also a level of, shall we say, charitably self-righteousness involved. That we're educators. We taught you stuff, or people that we know taught you stuff. So therefore, we know your body better than you do.
Oh God! Don't
Oh yeah.
Don't get me started on people knowing your body
No,
better
no,
than
no,
you
no,
do.
no, 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 no. But this is why my initial reaction was to go to, and maybe this is a topic for a different day, but to really
Yeah.
hash out public consent first before we
Yeah.
go back to relationship, capital R, consent, not because it isn't important, but because I think part of the reason on it, and this is my experience talking, I'm sorry, the reason I have seen this get so ugly is the stuff that has happened time and time and time again. And if I am silly enough, naive enough to say anything, then I have to understand the needs, the pain, the day, the insert 9 million other adjectives that the other person was having because they meant well. Why are you mad? They meant well. Nobody's complained before. It didn't hurt. You wouldn't know what hurts anyway, right? So what are you complaining for?
Yeah.
I would think certain social consent like that becomes a part of the hierarchical consent, which is
To a point.
norms can be their own hierarchy.
To a point, but in this case, like when I was acculturated from a very young age, the teachers aren't wrong. Doctors aren't wrong. Therapists are close to Jesus.
Yeah.
You don't complain about anything they do ever.
Yeah.
And if you are stupid enough to complain, let alone actually retaliate, which I did too. But if you are stupid enough to do any of those things, there will be hell to pay. And if you complain about any of those, then it was all for your own good anyway. And you should have just complied in the first place. Because otherwise, you wouldn't have made us do what we had to do anyway.
Well, yeah, that's it. And that's a way a lot of people in positions of especially certain kinds of power over young people wind up
Yeah, but it's young people to a point, but it's also how we view the value of the bodies of people who are quote unquote atypical, non-binary, not normal, not presenting in a way that makes other people feel, not presenting in a way that conforms to the existing stereotypes that other people hold very, very dearly. And if at any point you defy those, there are consequences, which is why I wanted to come on here, and B, I feel like there's a lot of overlap in situations because my body does not conform to what most people would consider to be quote unquote typical or quote unquote normal by most standards. I reach a point in my life where I don't actually care. And while that works for me, it makes a lot of people a whole lot more pissed off.
well, yeah.
Because you should just shut up and comply.
Well,
and if you don't hold the requisite amount of shame, we're gonna punish you extra for that.
And
Well,
with disabled people in general too, it may not one disability equals all disabilities, and so
Well,
you must not know what's best for you because you're disabled.
Right. Well, and also again, either because you're disabled or once you become disabled, or your medical situation changes, you must not know your own body. You must not know your own mind. You must not know your own heart, and you certainly can't know your own needs.
yeah,
There's a whole parade of people who are more than happy to tell you in a perfectly professional sphere what the textbooks say your heart, mind, and body should actually want and need. And they will give you just that. And they will put you in restraints until you comply.
Well, I mean, this is one of those things where there's a lot of things that, just to be clear, when it comes to medical things, when it comes to medical advice, there are things that are set up. I mean, things generally are set up based off of the people who the typical person. A lot of treatment and a lot of expectations are based on only a certain grouping of people. If you vary too much from that, sometimes medical information isn't as good. And it also doesn't help that doctors can have sometimes doctors don't. Some doctors care about medicine more than other doctors. So it's one of those things. Doctors, psychologists, all that stuff. To some degree, you have to make sure you find a good one.
Yeah.
Because it's possible to get. It is possible to end up with a bad doctor. It's possible to end up with a bad psychologist. It's possible to end up with bad friends. It's possible to end up with a lot of things where it can.
Well, I would argue, and I'll shut up after this.
No,
but
you're the guest. You speak as long as you want. I'm the
yeah,
one.
but no, because I'll go on for way too long.
Well, we all look. We're running a podcast. Clearly, everyone here except maybe Perfict, because Perfict stays quiet and then pipes up with a really good point, and then stays quiet, and then goes back to being quiet. But outside of
It's
Perfict,
called laying in wait.
That works too. That's
laying in
perfectly
wait,
okay.
listening, and then making a good point. But
I lay in wait when I lurk. I'm not currently lurking, so you're all screwed. Sorry.
but
Right.
but obviously we are willing to talk for hours and hours and hours.
Okay, so just to clarify a bit, I think part of the problem with some of the issues to which you're referring is the medical model of medicine and effectively society, and also, which right now I'm going to pretty much use interchangeably with the overcoming model of society, pretty much does horrible things to basically everybody, because the idea of overcoming, surpassing your quote unquote natural state as a goal, either for yourself or for your medical treatment primarily, is charitably stupid, not charitably destructive. And also completely fucking counterproductive. It makes me so pissed when either medical quote unquote professionals or highly religious quote unquote people and or professionals want to inform me that they're going to pray for me, or basically at me, because they're going to pray that God heals me. And I'm like, heals me from what? Precisely. So by your religious definition, let's just go with that for whatever, okay? God decided when I was born. God decided how I was born. So therefore, God decided how I would exist in the world. By your definition, God makes no mistakes. So precisely who the fuck are you?
Well,
Oh wait, shut the fuck up.
Hey, don't tell me that. No, I know you're continuing your
I'm sorry.
sentence.
I was
Yeah, I know,
random
I know.
crazy lady in the grocery store.
But like when it comes to these things, it's so bringing things back towards consent. This comes down to the question I really wanted to ask. And it very much relates to consent, bodily autonomy, and normalcy and all that. At what point do you non-consensually save someone's life? At what point is it ethical, and at what point is it not ethical?
In what specific context?
So, sure, someone tries to hang themselves, you save them.
Okay. Follow-up questions.
It's still.
What was the
context.
person's preceding mental state? How aware are you of said mental state? How aware are you of the context for said mental state? How aware are you of the consequences which they will face for not only the stigma of trying to kill yourself, which is whether you want to argue suicide is good or bad is immaterial to the particular point, in the sense of there's a whole lot of social stigma for killing yourself and failing.
Yeah, I mean
So
there is, but there's also
Right.
the question of like how bad is the person's situation?
Well, what's your barometer for bad?
Yeah, and are you preventing harm? At what point is making that decision? Because you are making, if you are helping save someone's life, and you have no idea for certain if that person wanted you to save their life, at what point? I mean that is a non-consensual act. Potentially a very non-consensual on your end, because if you don't know, so
Right.
It gets into really complicated and interesting ethics, because in general society will tell you to go out of your way to save that person's life, and
unless they're disabled, which they won't tell you that. If they're visibly disabled, they
fuck. Yeah, that's upsetting. And yeah.
I'm sorry, you just walked right into that one.
I mean, true. I'm not disagreeing with you. Well, it depends on the level of disability. If you are severely disabled,
what's severe?
Well, yeah, I know. Sorry. Let me wind that back a little bit. If you are obviously disabled when it comes to society, if you present potential disability, things that are viewed as disability by the general elements of society, if you have a wheelchair, a walking cane, if people have seen you struggle with certain aspects of society too much, then I assume they'll say no. If you are like me, who's like on the autism spectrum, and people can just say, oh, if you try hard enough, you'll be normal. If you're on that level of issues, they might fight stronger. There's a higher probability, I feel like, of them fighting to help you, regardless of whether or not you actually are psychologically incapable of taking care of yourself.
It depends.
Yeah.
You don't want to know. the number of times I've heard, we understand why somebody like you would want to kill yourself. You don't want to know the number of times I've had strangers, complete strangers, who don't know me from anything in the world, come up to me in the grocery store again because that's where.
Wow, your grocery store sucks. Wow.
And say, if I had just volunteer openly, if I had to live like you, I'd kill myself.
Yeah, well,
That's just super empowering. And then to go, okay, well, if I was in a complex medical situation, to realize how that would extrapolate and how that would play out. Double
Yeah.
down by the fact that I don't have a good medical support team
Yeah.
at this point. So yeah, there's that. But I had another. I wasn't in a grocery store. I was in a bookstore.
was it in the same plaza? Just checking.
No, but where I live, an interesting place. I kind of like the Twilight Zone, only not. So I was in a large bookstore with a cafe type area, and I happened to ask the tall person in front of me, "Hey, can you reach the juice, which is like at the top row, all the rows back?" I didn't see at that point that that person was using cocaine, and honestly, I didn't care. What I cared about was, tall person can reach more than me, hand me the thing. So he reaches, he hands me the thing, whatever, it's fine. We have a good laugh. We swap some scar stories about some random whatever, because whatever. And we're having perfectly jovial, inane conversation, like you do with strangers in public for no reason when you're bored. Or I do anyway. And it all goes fine until we're like 20 minutes in. And he's like, "Yeah, I had a stroke and it was bad." And then some other stuff. And he tells me a whole bunch of other medical personal stuff that I didn't ask for. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, if you want to volunteer that, great. But I'm not asking for any of it. But okay, great. And then he goes, "Oh, well, sometimes I have really bad days. And it's hard." And I'm like, "Yeah, I get that. Some days are hard. Some days suck. Chronic pain's a bitch. And she's fickle too." And then he goes, "Yeah. But then I get up and then I thank God that at least I'm not like you."
Oh my fucking God.
And I almost lose my shit.
Oh my God. That. Okay.
And I look at him and I'm like, "Yeah, well, we'll just have to do the best we can with what we got till we fine."
Oh my God. I can't believe that.
Oh,
I
no.
can believe that. I 100% can believe that. That's the sad thing. But like, it's.
I have scarier stories than that, but that's besides.
Oh,
the point.
I am sure you do. So when it comes to.
So yeah, but that's what I mean about public. A, public value. B, social value. And B, public consent. Because yeah, I consented to talk to that dude. Whatever. I wanted my Adwala smoothie thing. Whatever. And
that person consented to help you.
Right. Because it was not something that at that point, and when I realized his physical, I'm like, okay, well, I could ask somebody else. Like, no, I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. But I did not consent to be publicly objectified. And I did not consent to be publicly fucking ridiculed.
Yeah.
Devalued.
Right. By
Dehumanized.
somebody who was, right, and by somebody who was claiming knowledge and experience over difficult medical situations. And by the way, I'm not in any way saying that strokes or chronic pain different than the burn that I have, which I don't recommend either, but chronic
Well, yeah,
pain,
and-
inhalable
there,
amount
done.
or whatever, are minimized whatsoever.
Been
But-
there,
right.
doing that.
Precisely,
So,
but
you know.
but that is in no way a license for you to then. My issue with hierarchy too, and why hierarchy makes me twitch, is when you start building hierarchies in that way, it gives people like that, however well-meaning they may actually be, to put themselves above other people by means of making themselves feel better. Oh, I can do things she can't, so I'm better. It hurts, yeah, whatever. XYZ sucks. But God, thank Jesus, at least I'm not like her. Because,
Mm.
you know, I would just blow my fucking brains out. And to just volunteer all of that in public. When
yeah, and
I didn't ask for any of it.
It wasn't where I thought the story was going. I must say.
Yeah, well, I
No,
mean,
I
it's a
know.
surprise twist ending. So when it comes to that, I think part of the problem seems to be in terms of, well, I mean, in general, and maybe I obsessively say this a bunch, just humanizing people, just avoiding dehumanizing people is like
Right.
one of the most important things ever, because the moment you just see that person as you see yourself in that position, you genuinely see yourself in that position in terms of that person is another human being. That person is not just the fact that they're trans. That person's not just the fact that that person has a chronic illness. That person's not just the fact that they're in a wheelchair
Correct.
or
Which, and-
uses a cane. They're
Right.
a person. And if you're like, well, if I had to use, because like realistically, if I were in your situation, I would just be in your situation. That's the difference. I would just be me by being your situation.
well,
And I would still be a human being trying to do stuff and live life.
correct to a point.
As someone who was not sure if I was getting out of a wheelchair, and
I mean, it would suck. I'm not saying it wouldn't fucking, but I mean, like, there's lots of things that would suck. I mean, I'm not saying that it would be a good thing for people to have my life experiences either. And like when it comes to who's had a worse life, I wouldn't want to make the entire
Correct.
gamble back and forth about, oh, who's had it worse, oh, you have chronic pain, or oh, you are in this situation. Well, at least you're not in this situation. Who fucking cares? You're in
It's not the oppression
situations
Olympics,
in
we
life,
know.
and you have dealt with your situations more than I've dealt with your situations, which is
Correct.
not really at all.
Right.
I mean, I had to use a walker for a bit when I was hit by a car, but that's like the closest I get to any of that.
Well, a couple things. One, if you were disabled for a longer period of time, you would still be you,
Yeah.
but it would change you in various ways. Now, I can't
Oh.
say objectively precisely what those ways would be, and I'm not going to say you would just suddenly cease to have any of the interests or values that you have now, but having your whole experience shift that much would change the core of who you are as a person.
I
Well,
know,
I mean, it-
I know,
it-
I know
thing.
this sounds like a silly thing to compare it to, and it is, but it also isn't. Coming out
It
trans,
both is and isn't a silly thing,
yeah,
and a terrible idea.
It both is and isn't. It's Schrodinger's analogy.
Okay.
Are there cats?
There are always cats.
Good answer.
Okay, good.
Being trans and living as the correct and, as we would say, gender, has a profound effect on attitudes and things you do. It's very early on in this process, and I'm not comparing this, but I'm comparing it. I'm doing both of these things.
You're doing a
at the
Schrodinger
same time,
comparison. I gotcha.
Yeah. Right when I came out, I wrote a song called "I'm Still Me," and I do not stand behind that song anymore because so much of my life has changed and profoundly. And it does remind me of having the stroke and my life changed quite in different ways then, and being in the wheelchair and bedridden for several years and all of that, which did change me profoundly at the time too.
Yeah. And maybe I
Okay.
wasn't clear. Yes, there would be changes. It's just one of those things where that it gets into a whole nother philosophical conversation of what makes you you. Are you the same because I'm not the same person I was a year ago. I wasn't the same person I was 2 years ago. How much of a change actually matters is when it comes, and that starts to get what people view on that might change from person to person, because I feel like in a lot of ways I feel like I haven't changed that much in terms of my core personality, but maybe I have, and it's just been so subtle and so long term that I haven't noticed, because
you don't write songs about it.
Okay, we're past the watershed, the halfway mark. So now for extra Scrabble points, if you can just wrap all this back up and connect it to consent.
Oh, darn it.
Anybody want to give it a try?
Yeah, I'll go because I'm too much. Consent goes back to at its core for me two things. One, intrinsic humanity of everybody, and two, well, autonomy and shit. I forgot the other thing I was going to say, and it was good too.
Hold on, I've got your notes.
So consent. No. Don't go there. If you go there, I'll get distracted again. So value, autonomy, intrinsic humanity of everybody, and the idea that respect. Education is not a protective factor. Training is not a protective factor. Control is not a protective factor. You value people who you respect. You respect people you view as human, whether they look like you or not, because really, at the end of the day, who cares? Whether they move about the world in the same way you do or not, because at the end of the day, why does it bother you? Why, pray tell, do I have to argue with people about stupid stuff like, no, I can't really hold that cup. Give me a different one, please. Why is that an argument? Shouldn't be. That is one of the few type of areas where there are a couple areas where consent and certain aspects of life become binary, where it's like when you state your needs in a yes or no fashion to somebody, and you say, this is what I need, can you provide X? Then it's binary. And then I don't want to hear crap about what anybody else has to say about it. Because in that specific context, the answer is yes or no, period. I don't need commentary. I don't need any other information. Because if you can't, I will depend on you. And if you can't, thank you. I will do other things that don't involve you. Whether that is a public act, whether that is a private act. And our inability to provide that level of autonomy and safety to people in public, in functional society, makes the personal relationships suck an entire lot more. And yeah, sure, I can breathe at this particular point. That'll be great.
I will say one thing that I've been meaning to say for a bit, and I can't find a way to
I don't care. Say it.
connect
Use the
it
word.
well. So people need to stop touching pregnant women or women or anyone in a wheelchair or feeling bald people's heads or
Right.
doing trying to feel black women's hair. Like there's a lot of shit that people just need to stop doing
Well, and
without
again,
consent.
that goes-
I mean, it
right.
relates to public consent. It's just people need to stop that. Can
Well,
people stop that? It's really
Exactly.
fucking weird.
Or coming up to me and rubbing my head and saying, if you rub a redhead's head, that's good luck.
Oh my
Or
god.
you have
Right.
no soul. And well, the last I agree with, but the
You're too stupid to have a soul.
the
Really? Because I thought if you rubbed a redhead's head, you ended up getting smacked in the face. I don't know.
crazy. I don't know how lucky that is. I've been playing guitar for 40 years. I've got pretty strong wrists. The the way it goes into consent is we wound up in hierarchical and social consent, which is kind of where I wanted to go, although we went there without a preamble. But none of us is consenting by going outside of our houses to being made lesser, just sociologically for who we are and how I have been walked up to in a grocery store. Just saying.
What is
And
with it with these grocery stores? Like,
Yeah.
Where
can
do
we
you guys
just like,
shop?
yeah? Can people just try to give people some amount of consent in a grocery store? Sorry.
Oh no, I have a better grocery store story than that. But
No,
whatever.
let's let Christy finish. Okay.
Yes, I know.
Someone has said I'd kill myself before I became a tranny at me. And it's like, well, I'd probably kill you if you became one too. Which is, what else am I going to say to him? Yeah.
Why is it when I go grocery shopping, people are absolutely shameless? I mean, they're there in, fuzzy slippers, one bunny, one pink. They don't care. They're just there. They're shopping. I don't just.
Yeah, but
It's amazing what people think they. Now I talk a lot in public, and I talk to people in public, but I never, ever, ever insult someone in public.
admittedly, I don't talk to people much in public. This is one of those things where I will disagree with my talkativeness. I talk to people online a bunch.
Well, 'cause
I don't
strangers
talk
are
to people
weird.
in public mostly because if I leave the house, I have a goal. And that goal is to get those specific things and then piece the fuck out. So like
and not go to the grocery store, whatever you do.
No, I go to the grocery store. Well, so I need to get some help with for my roommates at the grocery store at the moment because due to surgical reasons, I'm not supposed to lift more than 5 pounds for another week and a little over a week. So
What, and this is your week to pick up 25 pounds of flour?
well, no, but like when you're at the grocery store and you're picking up groceries,
gallon of milk
like
is
those bags are
surprisingly
heavy.
Yeah.
Like I can't
Yeah.
carry the bags.
I have to be with somebody at the grocery store. It's actually imperative because I will freak out.
But like
But that's not
normally
that's not a consent issue. That's an autistic issue.
so
Oh, we're
it's
past the
related to-
watershed.
wait.
Anything's fair game now.
Wait, I was trying, but like normally I do walk to the grocery store and carry the bags back and forth because I like to keep in shape and I'm a weirdo like that. I say that like it's a weird thing. I don't know why.
Not a weird thing.
Not weird at all. I mean,
If one was a quarter mile closer to me, I could do it. I just can't get that far yet. I'm working on it. I'm really trying, but I may not be able to.
And if you're not able to, that's fine.
Yeah.
For one. And for two, I would just go back really quickly and say that knowing your own sensory needs and being able to navigate those and mitigate them appropriately is actually a level of consent and knowledge of your own limits and needs. So it is actually related, by the way.
Yeah.
So
There was one thing in your notes I really wanted to figure out because I have no idea what it meant. Everything else we kind of touched on, and I tried to move here and there where
words are hard.
But myth of independence, everybody relies on infrastructure and shared resources. I don't know what you mean by this.
Okay.
Oh, I actually weirdly don't have an idea of what is likely meant by that.
Great. But... what I mean by that is actually not nearly as complicated as it sounds by virtue of the way the conversation is actually going. There are a lot of people who their whole fear, terror, and level of bullshit things they will say to visibly disabled people in public comes from this whole very sort of snarky, holier than thou value judgment where they make, and they're like, oh, well, if they follow up, if I had to live like you, I'd kill myself. If in my situation, it's followed up with, if I wasn't independent, then life just wouldn't be worth living. And I'm like, really? Okay, so you grow your own food, do you? Right. How'd you get to the grocery store? Okay, most people either drive or use public transportation if you're not lucky enough to live in a metro area. So how'd you get here? Person, like, you didn't just teleport. You got here by using a road of some sort, whatever way in which you got here.
Sorry, I teleported into this society.
Well, not everybody is.
We redheads have a special thing we do.
Right, you just levitate and it just appears. So.
And I am a natural redhead, just so you know.
If you want a good line to pitch it back to them, you just say, and if I'd had the opportunity to live as you do, I might feel the same way.
Oh, I've said that about 100,000 times. My other favorite is like, well, they come up to me and it's like, well, what's your problem? What happened to you? And the correct answer to that in my head usually is nothing. What the fuck is your problem?
I mean,
I'm good. What the fuck happened to you?
At least I'm not harassing people in wheelchairs. That's,
I'm not harassing strangers in public. And
yeah,
this is my thing. So it's the idea. There's this idea in this culture, and especially in this country. Well, I'm an independent person, and I don't need anybody's help, but I don't rely on forms of assistance. And it's like, okay, but you do actually, because you rely on freaking infrastructure, because you use the roads, you use the sidewalk. You get your electricity from somewhere that you're not directly producing. Almost nobody grows most of their own food. Lesser people kill or otherwise source their own protein. So if you're going to tell me, oh, I'm a completely independent and individual, I say bullshit and fuck off.
Yeah, well, you see, that's way too complicated. You just say, I am as God made me. I don't care about your religious beliefs. I am as God made me. This is the way I came out. But at least my mama raised me so I didn't embarrass myself in public. What's your deal?
I've said that too, but because of where I live, and because of the amount of religious fundamentalists that surround my area, that doesn't necessarily go over well. And
I thought that would go over especially well there.
No, because
God made me. What's your deal? But fortunately, my mama raised me right. What the hell did happen to you?
No, because the response to that from like the fringy fundamentalist people is usually some variation of it is obviously she didn't, because you wouldn't exist the way that you do unless there was a moral failing somewhere, either with her or with you. So obviously you're a manifestation of sin and shouldn't exist.
Yeah, well, you know where that is. You know what? Oh my God, this is fascinating.
That's so fucking capitalist. It's like
it's people want to think they're driving the bus. They think they're in control of everything, and they think they control their life.
And they
and
think
they
that's a
go,
value jump.
there, but for the grace of God go I.
Right.
And they have to think that they are in control and can be preventing that.
Correct. And
They,
guess
they,
what?
they, they both
Prescription-
think God is in control and they are in control.
Well,
And both
God,
of
no,
those
no, no,
things
no, no,
cannot
no,
be
no, no.
true.
It's more. It's,
No,
see, that's what the hierarchy.
They
God
know
did-
that they aren't driving the bus. They think they have the ear of the bus driver.
No, 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 no. God made the bus. God put them in the driver's seat. So basically, fuck the rest of us because God put them in charge. So nothing they do or say can ever be wrong. And that's my added flavor of issue with hierarchy and why people suck.
Well, I mean, when it comes to all this, it's
Because yeah,
so yeah, obviously people only have so much control, and people rely on other people all the time.
yeah.
But
Well,
I think people, because the society we grow up in, partially we're taught from a young age that we are almost taught from a young age that we are in complete control over our lives, and that's so that we have no control over our lives. We have some control. Obviously, we make choices and whatnot, but we don't make all the choices. And it's an easy way to victim blame and make it easy to not feel like you have to change anything about society.
yes.
So it's a sort of way of convincing yourself that that things aren't as bad as they really are, and it especially doesn't help when there's so much more information out there.
Right.
It's very easy to fall into that trap of, well, things aren't that bad because, you know, you sort of the it doesn't matter who's president, it's all gonna work out. Like there's a lot of ways where there are real hardships that the average person go through, and it makes it it makes it, change is hard, change is difficult, and it's easy to psychologically avoid wanting to make change. And the fact of the matter is, while theoretically, if society fell apart, there would be groups of people who would survive, but people don't often. There are some people who can survive on their own. Most people can't. That's why we grouped up.
Right.
We grouped
So
up
what you're telling
and tamed wolves, and wolves are adorable, and you can't change my mind on that.
So what you're telling me is that if I'm the captain of my own destiny, then I have to be working on a plan to build a better world.
Yes.
And a better
Screw that. I'm going to see if there's an opening in the purser's department. I don't need this.
Well, the thing is, it's you can't see how much. You can only really easily comprehend what you're doing, and what you're doing is effectively a small drop. But there are millions of people. Well, there are billions of people, but there are millions of people around you, and if every small drop did something, it would become like a tidal wave of change. And
every waterfall began with one drop.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's easy to feel like you're alone and you're fucked. And
or you're alone and you're fine and everything's great and everybody else has.
Yeah.
No, that's my case. You're all robots put here to test me.
I can neither confirm nor deny that I am a robot. I just know I clearly interface with I have some interface with the computer to manage to make this stream. So, well, I mean, run the actual technical side of the stream. So I could be a robot. I don't understand humans well. Well, then you get to the whole autism spectrum stuff versus robotics. But
You're not a robot, you're a cyborg.
There is one thing I wanted to do back on the autism spectrum and consent. One of the reasons why this is an important issue, and it's been for years, because it's very easy to take advantage of someone like me, because I don't lie and I don't expect others to, and I'm very easily fooled because of that. And I've had to take protective mental measures and put up certain walls that aren't there for most people. Most people have some kind of discernment, I guess, but I don't have that. So I have to put up walls until such time as I can trust people, which is hard for me. Which is why when I say I trust you, that is a big fucking deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very black and white with trust, and I've gotten to a position where I either don't trust you at all because I don't know you, and therefore you're probably a liar trying to hurt me, or upset me in some way, shape, or form, or I trust you, we're cool, I don't see a problem with anything. I'm just gonna let you go, and I will talk with you about anything. And the talking with you about anything. I don't have very many filters. There's a few, but there aren't many with me. That's another thing.
I have a question about consent and the trans community. Question / commentary. I don't expect it something we're going to solve this evening.
No, we're going to solve everything. We're going to.
You might be surprised. There's a lot we talk about. Okay. We don't tell you about.
Yeah, we're secretly solving like all of world's problems. No, seriously, what's your question?
As a trans person entering into a relationship with another person, at what point does it really become obligatory to talk about being trans with that other person? When are you removing their consent? When are you dabbling in their consent issues with a relationship? And when is it merely a matter of pragmatism that you should, and I'm just, there's some fine issues in there.
I have my thoughts on that.
Yeah, so do I.
Do you want to go first, or should I?
You go first, because mine are quick.
Okay. So, mine might be quick too. So in general, I think when it comes to relationship stuff, it gets weird, the idea of hiding your past forever. And obviously when it comes to sexual stuff, depending on your desires to transition, and with relation to transition, whether or not you want to get surgery with relation to your primary sexual characteristic or not, I think just in terms of if you're going to have sex, it would be good to be open and clear about that. But that's true for almost every sexual experience. You need to be open and clear with, ideally, in my mind, before you have sex. But when it comes to just like you go on a couple dates, unless you're the type who has sex after a couple dates, like those were my not very experience with the relationship stuff happens. But if you're just having a couple dates, like I don't think you need to state that. That said, I can understand the desire also to keep safe. So I think it would help to suss out whether or not they're going to be the type to go with the trans panic defense. This is important for figuring out early on whether or not you need to break it the fuck off for your own physical safety.
Yeah.
In general, I would say before any physical encounter, I have an experience of something I didn't get to do when I was younger, which was sexting recently, and I was certain I had made it clear that I was untucked. I don't know what you would. I still don't know what we would call it. I don't like pre-op and post-op. I made it clear that.
Well, yeah, that gets into a whole linguistic thing about trying to
We get your
force things
meaning.
into the binary. But yeah, I get what you mean.
I thought I'd made it clear beforehand, but when it got to that point in this conversation, I said I stopped it and said, "Okay, look, I just want to make sure that we're clear, that this is, and she was fine with
Yeah.
it.
Well, I understand that. Yeah, I understand most people are going to behave reasonably and draw the line well back. I'm talking about where certain obligations might come in and where the person is doing something that might be wrong. And if that really does come up a whole lot, or I'm not sure that there's really an obligation if you're going, for instance, hit it and quit it. If you're going, we're just having a casual momentary relationship, it's not, well, then there's no ongoing relationship. There's no expectation. So
Yeah.
I understand it's putting it in terms that are like disabilities, which I hate to do, but it's because they are on the oddity spectrum. It's if you have a peg leg, would you tell them that you don't have to tell them you have a peg leg? Well, if it doesn't come up, well, it's not coming up. And if you used to be a Nazi and you had a swastika tattooed on your forehead, and it only shows up if you get a suntan or if you get really, really flushed, and you go, well, if sex goes really, really well, it's going to become obvious. But if it doesn't go that well, so I mean, it depends on. And you go, then it's up to you whether you're going to be telling them or not, or hiding your forehead. Okay.
Well, yeah, that's where I'm going. When it comes to, oftentimes relationships are built on trust. That's why I was like, if you expect it to be a long-term relationship, at some, and I don't. This is where it gets complicated, and I'm not sure necessarily. Because
it's not.
I mean, I went into a relationship. I went into a relationship not understanding how important sex is, and so when it comes to something like I mean, so if you're playing and having a long-term relationship, it has to come up. I would think by like 3 months, it would come up if you've had vaginoplasty or whatever, because at some point, if you hide too much of yourself, I don't think that necessarily helps relationships, because when it comes to trust, it helps if you know each other and you're willing to speak with each other. And I know it's scary, and that's why I'm saying that it would be good to suss out whether or not the person is the type who would actually go for the trans panic type defense. You would have to try to suss out how safe it is, and the fact that it's so dangerous makes it that much more scary. But I think at some point that trust has to be formed in a relationship, otherwise it ends up being like a hidden secret, and then your partner might be like, what other secrets are you hiding from me? But if they might do that anyways, just about the fact that you are trans, even if you're trying to live your life as yourself. So it's like, this is one of those things where it varies from person to it potentially varies from person to person.
Just as you said, suss out the other person, I got a Tinder message. It's like, oh, and that's what that notification was.
That could be fun. Who knows?
No, I'm right now. I'm with somebody, so
Okay.
I'm
Um,
not entirely. They're
that's
still
a
on my
that's a
phone. I just didn't.
that's a different context question. Anyway, I'm
The
gonna push
oh, I'm
back
sorry.
really quickly in this because you mentioned safety and consent, not from the trans perspective, but again from the disabled person perspective.
Yeah.
The way that I think about safety is really not typical for a lot of people because in my situation, if I am not in full control of my equipment, you move it 2 inches, literally 2 inches, maybe 3, and that is the functional equivalent of hard restraint. That is the functional equivalent of basically you own me until you decide otherwise. So I don't trust people. So
Understandable.
Because the level whatever physical acts might actually take place have is a different safety conversation than if this person removes me from my equipment, even with my initial consent, I am under their control and in pretty much complete submission until they decide otherwise. And as a fun bonus, they move stuff 3 inches. And not only have I lost pretty much all functional autonomy, they have the fun bonus of if anything is ever reported saying she did it to herself. She was trying to get up and she was impaired secondarily or being irresponsible or whatever the fuck else. And she hurt herself. So obviously, I need to be in control because she can't be trusted with her own body.
Oh,
So,
God damn it, yeah.
and I mean, the difference is very literally 2 to 3 inches. Just enough so that if somebody else who comes in and goes, what the fuck? That's 3 inches away. What are you complaining about? Because 3 inches matter. And whatever else you want to do once we're in, place B to whatever actual the physical act is, that's immaterial to my primary safety concern. That's a different conversation, and we can, that consent conversation is different. And that consent conversation to me, in my situation, means a hell of a lot less than I am trusting you so intensely. Like most people do not have any fucking concept of that level of trust whatsoever.
Yeah, and
And
I only have the loosest concept of that because after recovering from surgery, I couldn't get out of bed on my own.
Right.
Like if I lied down, I needed my friend's help to get up.
Right.
So like the level of like I said, that's only like a glimpse,
right.
and that was only
right.
the case for like a couple days that I couldn't. I absolutely couldn't. It just hurt a bunch after that.
But see, the difference there is even if it hurts, if you really had to, like if the house was on fire and you were properly otherwise motivated, not that it wouldn't hurt, not that it wouldn't have sucked, but you probably, if you really truly had to, you probably could have done something else. Obviously, it would have been easier to and don't pop stitches and yada yada yada. But you would have had a level of autonomy, even in that situation of legitimate vulnerability and validity and a lot of other good stuff that I do not have.
Yeah,
and that I will not have ever.
Yeah, and that is like the biggest, like,
right.
Wow, and I'm not sure if I would have been able to. Well, the first day.
Right. No, I get it.
Maybe I wouldn't have. I may or may not have been able to the first day. Because one of those things is that, like I was on nerve blockers and a bunch of other shit. That when it comes to
I'm not saying that as a value judgment.
Yeah. Wait. Can I blurt something out?
Yes.
We're getting close to the end. I am annoyed that legally that I'm still annoyed about this. Is dumb and it's originally celebrity based, but Britney Spears has no legal consent.
Well, she does. She just doesn't hold it herself.
Yeah, her father holds it.
Well, technically he doesn't either at this point. Technically the conservator is currently publicly appointed, and that's a whole other. Free Britney is a disability.
No, I thought she just I thought her father regained it during the legal battle. No.
I can send you several very interesting resources on.
Thank you.
So, I mean, yes, her situation sucks, and yes, it's bad, and there are several conversations going on in the disability community right now based on her situation sucks. Her situation is not quite what the public assumes it to be, but it is still admittedly wretched and stupid, albeit legally sanctioned. But it is something that happens to disabled people a lot in this society.
Yeah.
And
when it hit the news that she had shaved her head, my very first response was, there is a person who has never been allowed to own their own hair.
Yeah. And again,
that's what shaving her head was.
Correct.
And one of the things I've always been wondering is why she was on a few shows. She's really funny. She's a good-looking woman who's really funny. This is like a gold mine for comedy. Okay?
She's been exploited her entire
life.
life.
Why is this not? I mean, yeah.
She's been exploited every waking moment.
But I mean,
pre-Star Search. And somehow we're surprised when we deprive somebody of, consent and autonomy.
Yep.
Yeah.
That somehow.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if she wanted a sitcom, I can fill a room with writers and find a producer. Really?
Fuck that. She wouldn't need a room full of writers. She wouldn't need it.
She was on the Mickey Mouse Club.
Yeah, but the shit started pre that. The shit started like Star Search. So anyway, to start to Free Britney is a disability rights issue, and I have plenty of resources related to that, which I will be happy to provide.
Yeah, no, please. It's something I've been interested in. It's something that one of my roommates has been talking about it a lot, and I think I just knew about it. I heard about it first, like relatively, within the past year.
Right. And it's been going on for over a decade.
Yeah.
At this point. And again, that's a very good example functionally of control is not a protective factor. Overexertion of control doesn't actually improve jack shit. It actually fucks stuff up harder. So again, sit down, shut up, and let people have their own lives. To whatever level they can functionally do that. And if they need to ask for support and services, then make those available. Other than that, fuck the hell off.
Yeah, well, I mean, it helps to just ask what the other person needs and how you can help. And if you happen to be able to be, or if you are in a position to help them and you're not wasting all your spoons, if we're starting to get into spoon theory, because I've been talking about spoons way too much recently for some reason.
Spoons are fine. You want a spork? Got several.
But like, because obviously people have different levels of ability, and I like the and recently I've started to like the breakdown of using spoons. But yeah, if both sides consent and have the ability to help each other, it's good to help each other.
Right. But here's the thing too. Asking what
Yeah.
somebody needs is important. But
Yes.
asking is only worth a damn if you are willing to accept the answer that is given,
Yeah.
not the answer you wanted. Because if
Yes.
you're only going to accept the answer that you wanted, then don't even bother to ask.
Yeah.
Even for something as simple as, especially when I'm out in public, people get really excited to help open doors, which is fine, except when they want to actually stand in the doorway and like use up a fair amount of said doorway with their feet. And I'm like, yeah, that's not. I know you're trying to
I don't
be
think you
helpful.
understand how this works.
See, what you do is you have it's a simple solution to get your feet out of the way. What you do is you have your hand on the door where the rest of your body is on the other side of the door to some degree, so that you are not in the way.
That's admittedly not always possible in all situations.
Well, yeah.
And and then in a lot of situations that I'm in as well, a lot of doors have I-beams such that even there are doors that are blocked with I-beams and other things such that even that much, literally like any added anything in doorway is too much, because there are doorways that I have to navigate where I literally have less than a half an inch on each side. And it's like, yeah, that's a lovely thought, but again, think about it from over there, because I literally have no space to do that. And your thought, whatever, great, I appreciate the thought, but think over there, thanks.
Well, I mean, it would be a lot easier if a lot more places had the push to open things and also made sure they worked.
Yeah. So just to wrap on something hilarious, my very favorite grocery store story of all time. So I was in the store at one point and I was looking for cheese, and as I'm sure surprised no one, I can have resting bitch face when I'm like very intently focused on like the thing that I need for the thing. And sweet looking old lady comes up to me and does the obligatory cis femme thing. He goes, "Oh, you'd be so much prettier if you smiled." And I look at her and I smile because I want what I want and I want her to go away so I can get what I want. And
so
I smile
old-fashioned.
and I laugh at her. I smile and whatever, and I do the thing. She goes, "See, you're so much prettier when you smile. You should smile all the time."
Well,
It gets better. You should smile all the time because you are a manifestation of suffering, and God put you here.
Oh my God!
As an example for all of us. So you should be grateful that you are one of the few who has been gifted with a purpose in life, and it is your obligation to fulfill it for the rest of us.
Oh my
Is
God!
the grocery store you go to only sell loaves and fishes?
No, this was a shoe store.
There's a shoe store,
Right?
No, it was groceries. I was looking for cheese.
Oh, cheese!
Yeah, she was in the dairy
I
aisle
heard
looking for cheese.
For whatever reason, I heard shoes. This is me making weird assumptions, even though I heard you say grocery store earlier. I should have pressed. Yeah, no, that's awful. But also the smiling thing is annoying because it's just valuing women only based off of their prettiness. Like women don't have other qualities or whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, I realize I don't have any other qualities, but like I assume most other women do.
Well, but the point of being pretty in that way, though, is to attract a mate and procreate. So obviously, that's a different set of problems. Because again, I live in the South and crazy fundamentalists.
Yeah. So, we are getting close to the end of this. So, we can wrap up with, I guess, funny stories of people walking up to you and saying stuff like that. When I worked for 3M, and it was the only company I came out as trans. After I came out as trans, and I had them run their own thing for telling people how to deal with me or whatever. And I had someone randomly come up to me in work and tell me what a brave person I was, and what a brave soul, and all that sort of stuff, just like in the middle of work. I don't know who they were. I don't know what part of 3M they worked for. I just know that happened.
You want to know a secret? It wasn't really about you. It was about them making themselves feel better.
Well, yeah.
And relish in the fact that you could live a kind of truth which they could never be public about because shame, bullshit, society.
Shame! Shame!
So it didn't matter that you didn't know, and it didn't matter that it kind of clicked you out because you existed in a performative function in that moment for them. So
yeah.
Congratulations, you're an inspiration. Do you want a cookie?
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of the, and this is like a common trans experience, similar things like that. So you end up with there's a lot of crossover with LGBTQ stuff and disability stuff,
right? And that's why
how people get treated.
Right, and that's why I stood up and danced around. I was like, no, I have thoughts. I have thoughts. Can I come join this side of the playground, please? Because I have thoughts and opinions and facts and research and all kinds of shit.
Yeah. Christy, do you have a wonderful story of people walking up to you? Another story about people walking up to you and saying something weird like that?
The biggest problem, with me, it's everybody knows I'm trans because I'm a public figure in Buffalo. So it's not something that I didn't.
I have one.
I didn't.
Wait, you're not even trans. How did you get one? Perfect.
I had to go through the process in public, so it was not the easiest. So, but nobody tells me I'm brave, which is cool because I have a big metal stick and I can hit them with it.
And I can run them over, but that doesn't seem to stop them in my game.
Perfect. Okay, what's your story? I'm curious.
It's not the trans one. I'm American Indian and Irish. Those are my primary genetic.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay, go on.
Which combine to my looking basically Middle Eastern.
And what area of the country do you live in? Perfect. Just generally, what region?
Virginia.
Oh, shit. You're screwed.
Which this arrived at a lot of people coming up to me after 9/11 and telling me how they didn't hold it against my people.
Oh my god. And because it was only based off of your looks and because, oh my god. Yeah, no, I can see that. Yeah. No,
and where you just go, at first you're like, wait, I'm Irish. Then you go like, well, thank you very much. Roll with it.
Did you tell him to get off your land too? Because I would have.
Just as long as you didn't threaten another 9/11, and then you would probably have gotten killed.
No,
Yeah.
not a threat.
mean,
Just
I
well,
am
if you don't hold it against me, get off my land. Get off my lawn, bitch. Go away.
I have nowhere to speak because I'm Hispanic, so we did a lot of the nasty.
So,
Ah,
with that said,
or I thought that was gonna get a better reaction than it did. But, yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Where can people find you?
Well, they can find me here, and they can find me on Discord at the Rumpus Room. I'm at there most of it, and
Yeah.
those two.
What about you, Christy? Where can people find you, and is there anything you're working on that you'd like to promote?
Oh, I'd love to be working on something, which I'm kind of not. So
Well, obviously you work on the Flute Voice every week.
I do this thing which I'm very committed to, and on Twitter at Normality Quake, and Christy Abbey is my main channel. Chris Abbey Music without the TY is my secondary channel, and I keep finding bits and pieces of my music all over the internet, which is kind of funny. Apparently I had a blog too, so.
You did. It's broken. You should fix that.
Don't search out for my live journal. I use different names at the time. It's actually probably hard to find.
My blog was really good, actually. I read it and I was like, hmm.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about my blog. I was just like, I haven't shown you that.
No, but I know where to find it.
Do you? Well, I mean, I said live journal, but you don't even know what name I used at the time, because I didn't do anything related to Ozma until like past 6 years or so. Oh no. I'm worried now. Don't find my live journal.
She knows things. Don't tempt
Damn
me,
it. I don't remember what I say. She might actually know. I go, oh shit.
You did tell me once. So.
Oh, god damn it. I should have known that. This is what happens when I have so few filters.
It's okay. I wouldn't read it without permission. You know that.
Yeah, and I honestly wouldn't want to share it without my permission, which is an obvious statement. Wow. Anything else, Christy?
That would be a consent issue.
Anything else, Christy?
No, but stick a pin in that.
Okay.
Wait, we have the LGBT.
Oh yeah, LGBTQ Q whatever. Oh, those queer ass rants that we do.
Yeah, we
with Sophia, which we plan on doing a regular thing. Hopefully, we'll stick to that. Well, me and you'll stick to that, right, Christy? We're stubborn that way.
Yes, pretty much. The Sophia won't be able to do this show really as much as she was, so she wanted to do something else.
Yeah, we can rant.
We could do
ranting
news.
is fun.
Yeah, so we could do news instead and do it that way and distinguish it from this show by because this is just sort of chatting and trying to work through some issues. And I have a lot of issues. I have a subscription. I have a lifetime subscription.
As do we all.
Yes. So LGBT rants. I don't remember. Oh dear, I should know it. You should know it. We should both know it. That's okay.
But, I don't know. Look, we only did one episode, and so I don't know if Sophia, like, it's that's its own thing. We'll sort that out. We'll figure something out consistently.
Okay.
So, Ozma, where can you be found?
Emma, I assume you don't want any special promotion outside of your Instagram, correct?
Yeah, my Instagram, which is not really sayable, but you can read it in the description if you want to. Because I don't really have any other major projects that are ready for prime time yet. But thank you for having me and letting me rant.
Yeah.
And there is definitely some overlap between disability issues and trans, LGBT, and other larger queer issues that I don't think get enough discussion or attention, let alone introspection. So I thank you guys for sharing your platform and your sandbox.
Yeah.
Oh,
And thank you for being here. And you can find me at Talking to Nothing on Twitter. That's Talking to NOTHIN on Twitter. And you can also find me at Ozma in the Dark everywhere. Just everywhere. I'm everywhere. No, I seriously have a Reddit. OzmaInTheDark.com, Ozma in the Dark on Twitch. I'm pretty sure I have a thingy with more links type thing. I don't know. I'm Ozma in the Dark in lots of different places, but I mean that's part of marketing. And at the moment, I'm trying to sort stuff out. I will promote the fact that if you can find me on YouTube, because I'm still really small, there is I do a little meme thing. I still have the meme thing about the Xander Hall versus Dusty terrible debate. But it was funny, terrible.
So
But yeah, and I'll try to do the LGBT rants. And you can find me. I stream AQ40 runs in WoW Classic on Twitch every Saturday now. So,
as I recall, if I put Ozma in the Dark into DuckDuckGo, I can find you on Twitch and at YouTube. But if I go to YouTube and put in Ozma in the Dark, it's more than a page worth of other people before there's you.
Oh, darn it. Well, I'll get there.
well, also make sure the correct link is in the
You'll get
description.
there.
Yeah, well, once I get produce more content and am able to get 100 subscribers, I'll be able to change my YouTube channel to Ozma in the Dark and therefore make it easier to find me.
Ah, yes, the mythical threshold.
Yeah, so, well, I mean, realistically, 1,000 is a bigger threshold, but yeah. So, with that, have a wonderful day, everyone, and it was I hope you had a good time listening to this conversation, and remember, your voice matters. Whoa, I had it right once too. Wow.
Voice life, you.
Yes, your voice matters, your life matters, and you matter.
See, with some conviction.
Your voice matters, your life matters, and you matter. See, now I just sound pissed. Like it's not gonna work out.
It's my catchphrase. I mean,
Well, yeah, I know, and I stole it from you.
I know, that's fine.
Consensually.
You can't steal what I willingly give.
Yeah. So.
Or you can if we play role playing.
Have a good one. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Peace.